everybody, this is Jim Hawk from Team Hawk Realty. Thank you for joining me this morning in this video. Today I want to discuss further about the video I did a couple weeks ago regarding purchasing your cottage in the fall season. There's some things that you really want to focus on when looking to purchase your cottage. To start off, you want to know about your financing, have that organized before you get serious about this, because you don't want to lead yourself into a spot where you're going to be disappointed and if the financing doesn't go through and you've fallen in love with a cottage property. Financing is maybe a little trickier depending on the type of property that you're looking at purchasing. There's really two types of property. Type A properties are properties with road access, proper heating system, heated, insulated, almost like a secondary home. That would be your type A property. These are typically much easier to finance than your type B properties. And your type B properties may be properties without a heating system, not insulated, real old, like older cottages on an island, on a seasonal access, road access. So these are type B cottage properties, and these properties can be a little bit more difficult to finance. So typically you're going to need a larger down payment, possibly as much as 35% down with these properties. So you really want to kind of find out what your needs are and then look at what your budget provides for those needs. Some of the things that we really want to talk about are water potability. So whenever you're buying a cottage, typically you may find a cottage that is on a municipal water service. There are some properties out there, but I would say the majority of the properties that are cottages are going to be on either a drilled well, a dug well, or sometimes they'll even draw water from the lake, depending on where the cottage is. So you want to get a potability test, and you want to make sure that the well is good enough to service your needs. The bank's going to want a water potability test anyway, so you're going to want to get that done either through a private lab, or you can get it done through the Simcoe County Health Unit if you're buying in Simcoe County. You want to make sure that there's enough water from the well to service the needs. You want to make sure that the pressure tank, the pump, and all equipment are in good operating condition. And if it is drawing from the lake, you typically want to make sure that there's maybe a UV light system, a filtering system, so that the water that comes through can still be potable. Then you want to look at your septic tank and your whole septic system in general. As a property serviced by municipal sewers, again, there are areas that are serviced by municipal water and municipal sewers that are cottage properties. That's not the majority. That's very much the minority. So if you're looking at buying, it's not like buying a home. If you need to know more about what's servicing the waste, in some cases the property, because of its size or location, it may only allow for a holding tank. So a holding tank is fine for a cottage property. It's just something that may have to get pumped out a couple times a year, depending on the use and how many people are using the cottage. Septic system, is there a full septic system? And if there is, you want to get that septic system inspected and make sure that everything's going to where it's supposed to be going, that the tile bed isn't plugged up and you're getting puddles of water over top of the tile bed. In some communities like Tiny and now Tay is they're starting to do tests on the septic tanks and the septic systems every 5 to 6 years, depending on the location. So the townships are forcing the cottage owners and the homeowners to get their septic tanks inspected on a regular basis, which is great because if there's an issue, then somebody can deal with it before the issue gets out of hand. As well, it gives you as a buyer, you can look at an old inspection report, which may only be a couple years old, and have some confidence that if the septic was in good condition then, it'll still be in good condition when you're purchasing it. There are companies that you can hire that will come out and do a pump out and re-inspect to make sure that everything's going in the direction it's supposed to be going. And you want to make sure that's not going back into the house or the cottage. Next thing I want to talk about is access. And water access in particular. So even if your cottage fronts on a lake or a bay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you own right down to the water's edge. Quite often the townships have road allowances that run between the end of the property line and the beginning of the water line, the water's edge. So that's quite often like a road allowance that is probably never ever going to be used as a road allowance, but it gives everybody an opportunity that they can walk across your property. So you may have a property on a beach, and if there's a 66-foot road allowance between your property and the water's edge, then anybody will have the right to walk across that property and gain access to the water and walk right across what you feel is your property. That's normal, and especially in tiny township, it's very normal. Every township has their own little quirks. Like some of them have 16-foot road allowances, and that just gives the township access to the property, and it also gives a buffer between what you can do on the water's edge, as opposed to taking up all the rocks and moving everything around and disturbing the natural shoreline. Some townships want to make sure that natural shoreline is maintained. So next thing I want to talk about is road access, because this is also important for your financing. So is your property on a year-round road? Many cottages are on year-round roads. It can be on a year-round private road. Doesn't necessarily have to be on a year-round municipal road. So if it is on a year-round private road, what are the fees associated with maintaining that road? Typically on any time there's a road allowance or a private road, the members of that all have advantage of that road, pay an annual fee to grade the road, maintain potholes, and just make sure that the road is in good driving condition. Is it on a seasonal road? Some properties are on a seasonal private road where you can maybe drive in the property from from May until November, but November, December, January, February, March, and maybe even April, you don't have access to that property because the road's covered with snow, and it could become a snowmobile trail at that point. So you want to make sure, and there's probably going to be fees associated with that, because once the snow goes, there's probably going to be potholes and work that needs to be done. So I'm sure in most cases there is a shared road cost that every member of that shares that road has to pay a fee on a regular annual basis. And the fees aren't usually much. They could be anywhere from $200 to $500 for a year to maintain a road. Depends on how many cottages are involved in maintaining that road. Do you have to cross a neighbor's property to gain access to your property? So if you've got a right of way over top of somebody's land to get to your cottage, you need to know more information about that and make sure that that's registered, so that the homeowner, like the neighbor, doesn't ever take that away from you, because then you're going to find yourself in a legal problem, and you really don't want to get involved in that. So if it's a deeded right of way or something that can be proven to be, you've got affidavits signed that can prove that this has been in use for a number of years, then you're going to be fine maintaining that if there's been undisturbed use of that property. If someone puts a chain across it once a year or for a week a year, that could create a whole new issue for you. So you really do want to make sure you understand clearly what's involved. And if it's on an island, if it's an island property, you want to know where maybe the nearest marinas are. You want to make sure that there's a good dock at the cottage that you're going to be driving to. You want to make sure there's good water at the property, because water fluctuations go up and down. So you don't want to find yourself buying a property when it's high water and finding out when the water, maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, starts to dissipate and there's less water there, that you can't even drive your boat to your cottage. So those are things that you really want to ask the agents about and make sure that you're protected on that. Another little thing that we come across with cottage properties is quite often there's hydro easements that run across lands, which allows the hydro to come in and service their lines. They may have to trim up trees. They may have to spray to stop the trees from growing up over top of the hydro lines. They may have to come on your property to repair hydro lines. So typically there are hydro easements in a lot of these properties, because most cottage properties don't have underground hydro to them. Some of the newer roads will have that, but the older cottages and the older roads typically won't have that. So you just want to make sure about that. And I always tell everybody, you really want to get a home inspection, make sure that the structure is in good working order, get a septic inspection, make sure that the septic's in good working order, test the water, and just make sure what you're purchasing is right for you. And if there are any issues, it's better to deal with them before you firmed up on removed all of your conditions than it is after you removed all your conditions and then the lawyer finds something after the fact. That's going to create a whole lot of issues and legal issues. Owning a cottage is a great opportunity. It's a great thing. It's wonderful for a family, but you just want to make sure that you're doing the right thing and protecting yourself right from the get-go. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if anyone out there has anything that they want to hear me talk about, please comment below. Please, maybe text their office or comment on Facebook and give me some other ideas for topics to talk to you about. If anyone's thinking about purchasing a cottage, please feel free to contact one of my agents or myself at the office. We all have experience here with working on cottage properties, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. Keep smiling and enjoy the blessings that come into your life each and every day. Thank you very much.